Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, welcome everybody. We are back with another episode of Life List, a birding podcast. I am here with my co-host, Alvaro Jaramillo. I am George Armistead. We are currently in the South Pacific, heading from the Chatham Islands to the port of Bluff.
I still think when you say South Pacific, you make it sound too tropical.
Yeah, well, it's kind of borderline tropical at the moment. Well, it's getting less tropical all the time, really.
Hula, or something like that, the South Pacific.
Yeah, it's true. We did just cross the international date line. That was kind of a trip.
So we're older now.
Yeah.
Younger, something.
Well, we crossed a couple days ago, too, so we're kind of back to where we were.
Oh, that sucks.
But it really messed up our eBird track.
Yeah.
Man, got to go in and fix that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the eBird track went crazy when we crossed it. Like, it didn't know what day it was. And then the map, it showed us going suddenly to the North Pole and coming down, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was sort of insane what happens with technology.
Bit of a mess.
You think that they would know.
Yes, we got to talk to the powers that be there at eBird and get this straightened out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we are very lucky to have with us today a guest by the name of Mike Bell, who hails from the Chatham Islands and is a seabird expert and has done a ton of conservation work, including on what most people agree is the world's rarest seabird, the tycho, the magenta petrel, and a host of other projects as well. Mike, welcome to Life List. It's really great to be here with you.
Kia ora. Thank you very much. So, kia ora is hello in Māori in New Zealand, so the indigenous people. So, and which makes up bulk of the population on the Chatham. So, I try to weave that in wherever I can.
Nice.
Tycho is actually the Maori name too, right? Of the bird.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Tycho is the Māori name. It's actually like a generic name for a range of petrels, sort of that size. So like Westland petrel's called Tycho as well. White-chinned petrel's called Tycho as well. So early days they kind of didn't recognise the different species apart from which ones they could eat or not. So all of those sort of that size eatable seabirds were Tycho.
Well, hopefully people aren't eating too many magenta petrels today.
not so much now. So.
Yeah.
But you know what we were eating yesterday in the Chathams? Fish and chips.
Blue cod.
Best blue cod in the world.
Oh my God, that's good.
Caught in the Chatham Islands at the pub. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, there was nothing wrong with that. And our buddy Bud Younce also picked up one of those spiny crayfish, and we got to sample that as well. That was pretty special.
And the local beer.
Wheeling and dealing. That's a Chatham Islands tradition. So,
Bud fits right in.
He had the full Chatham experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, he was down there at the dock trying to get his lobster.
He waving around some New Zealand dollars or something.
Yeah.
I thought it was he took his shirt off and started waving that. And that's what brought him in, wasn't it? That's what I heard.
Yeah, I think that's what really did it.
That's how Island Whispers go. It starts off waving $10 around and it ends up as shirtless.
Oh, my, yeah. I think that was it.
Yeah, put him over the top. Yeah.
The Chathams, though, I think, for a lot of people listen, they've never been in New Zealand, and they think, okay, there's a bunch of islands around New Zealand, or they don't understand that the Chathams are actually really well away from the main islands, right? I mean, how distant are they actually? We're two days to steam back to the main country, so...
And I'm good. I'm pleased you said it that way around, because in the Chathams we don't consider ourselves part of New Zealand. We're the Chathams.
Right.
So the mainland, what you call the mainland New Zealand, we call that New Zealand.
Right.
So we'd rather you have a passport to check in between, but the government still claims it because really good fishing around it, so they want the tax money off that fish. So they'll never let us be independent. But 800 kilometres east of about Timaru, which is just south of Christchurch, 44 south, parallel goes right through it, so still in the roaring 40s. It's also really cool ecologically because you've got the cold subantarctic current that comes up, and it meets a warm subtropical current that gets there. So it's sort of a mixing ground. We get southern species elements, like royal albatross and things like that, but then you get some northern species, like black-winged petrel and things breeding on the island. So it does create this real mix and super abundance of seabirds. Like personally to me, the bit from the Bounties up to the Chathams, I think that's some of the best tube-nosed bird watching on the planet.
Certainly it's knocked our socks off. I mean, and we're lifelong seabird enthusiasts, so no argument from us.
And there's also a lot of birds. If you just look through the world list, that there's the Chatham Island albatross, Chatham,
Chatham petrel,
Chatham pigeon.
We should have come up with a few more name starters.
I know. I do like the way that. Sort of the locals know some of the birds by the local names rather than the official names. In fact, it makes you wonder, maybe we should use that, because Chatham Island pigeon is not very colorful. But
what's the name? Palia?
Paria.
Yeah.
Even Paria pigeon would be like better than
it'd be a much more fun name.
Yeah, it would be.
Fun. That's a huge pigeon.
That's massive, eh?
Yeah, and they're rather tame when we found them sitting on a field. But they really look like bustards or something,
Yeah.
Never like this.
And crazy, like just come out of the forest and then grazing on that pasture, eating little herbs and things and berries that are growing in amongst the grass there, and just hopping along. You feel like you're in bloody Grand Central Station or something, feeding little rock pigeons or something, but no.
Yeah, but these are like twice the size.
It's like 3-4 times the size, just jumping around, massive. So even for New Zealanders coming out there, because it's similar to Kerrigoo in New Zealand, the wood pigeon in New Zealand, and it's a third to half the time bigger than that. So even they're blown away by the size of it when they get out here.
And how many? Do you know, like how many Kiwis from New Zealand actually will come and visit the Chatham Islands in their life? Like what percentage might one guess? It's pretty small, right?
It'd be tiny, but there is tourism's reasonably. I reckon it's probably the second most important economy on the Chathams now after fishing. So there's a lot of Kiwis. Most of the visitors that come there, other than ships like this that we're on, are Kiwis coming over. And for most of them, I find they've got this tiny little sort of micro connection to the island. Their granddad might have worked there. One of their kids might have gone to school with someone boarding from the Chathams and things like this, or they've just heard about it a little bit, and they've just got this little niggly desire to go there, and then. And then they often just end up doing it.
I think there's 2 commercial flights a week from New Zealand to the Chatham, something like.
4 in the summertime.
Okay.
So
yeah,
so go in summer.
Yeah.
And then all the passengers, they get jammed down the back of the plane, and the front of the plane is for live crayfish being flown out. So that's more important than the passengers.
Absolutely.
So, we know our place.
And there's
do they give each one of the crayfish a belt, and and sit down
first class service,
proper seat, and they watch
first
the
class
movie.
service on the way to China.
That's
Netflix on demand. So.
It's a big industry. I heard.
And there's about 650 residents on the island?
Yeah, 650 residents. Yeah, fishing the biggest industry. The farmers will argue that farming's the second biggest one. I reckon tourism is, and then.
And how many islands are there in the Chathams?
So there's sort of 4 big islands. Only 2 are permanently settled, and then there's the big nature reserves, Mungdi Island and Southeast Island, Rangatira, and then there's a whole scattering of other little islands around that, and some of those are pretty mega cool. The pyramid where we went around, the most southern one, only breeding place for Chatham Island albatross, and pretty spectacular piece of rock.
Yeah, we did record another podcast the other day just talking about some of the things we saw, including the pyramid. We said was the most iconic seabird spot on Earth, but I gather you get to camp out there sometimes?
Yeah.
I mean, you might be one of the few people in the world that has hung out there,
There'd only be a handful of us, to be honest,
Yeah.
And my brother Dave's camped there more days than anyone on the planet, so he knows it better than me, but it's pretty spectacular. You need a good skipper to drop you off, and we're pretty lucky in the Chathams, those cray fishermen and that. They're good skippers. They can nose their boat up and jump off. And that day we were going around, that was a good day there. So that's the conditions that we're landing on. So
You-
you saw
you-
how rolly that was and stuff like that.
You
That's a good
basically
day.
have to jump onto the rock, scramble out with. They throw you your equipment, your tents, and what have you. You
Yep.
take water, I imagine,
Wait,
a little bit
water.
of
So
food.
you need all your water, all your food, all your tents, all your backup tents, and then all your backup tents. Because we've been on there and had tents just obliterated in the wind. You saw where
Yeah.
that campsite is. It's exposed as, and then it's round. So the wind there's no lee anywhere. The wind just keeps sucking around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't look like, if you're looking at the island, it truly looks like a pyramid. It doesn't look like there'd be any flat place to
There's
put
not.
a tent.
There's not. There's what relatively fat is what we call it, So
Uh-huh.
you do end at the end of the night, hunched up in the bottom of your tent, kind of thing, slipping down. So you come back pretty whacked from trips like that because you don't sleep good and things like that, and you're working pretty hard. So it's but you also get up in the morning and
You're surrounded.
look where I am, man.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
albatross picking your ass climbing into the tent,
Right.
So you're right in amongst them, so it's you pinch yourself to
Yeah.
get to a place like that.
Most of the work you do there, is it counting the nests, or is it banding, or is it finding new species that might have colonized, or
No, so it's all sort of around the Chatham albatross and counting to assess how the population's doing.
Yeah.
But then also checking for your marked birds so that we can do survival analysis to try and work out annual adult survival and see if there's any changes in that. And fortunately, and very rarely for albatross, Chatham's is a species that's doing okay.
Yeah.
It's about 5,000 pairs. It's been stable for about 25 years that we've been doing the research for. But probably mainly because they just don't like following ships. You see the whole time, you see them, but they're not following us and things like that as we're cruising around here.
Yeah.
So that's meant they've been less caught by fisheries bycatch, so they've been less affected by that than other albatross species. So
It is interesting that we do this 17-day cruise all around, and we basically only see them right by the pyramid.
one day.
Yeah.
They disperse. I mean, right now, obviously, they're breeding, but when they do disperse, they disperse mostly to the east.
So from the tracking work they've done, there's like about 3/4 of the population is sort of going southeast, down kind of around the Bolland Seamount, and then another proportion of the population is actually going northeast, sort of halfway between us and New Zealand actually. And there's no male female split or anything like that. It's just random, and they seem to do this sort of thing. So
that's during the breeding season.
during the breeding season.
But then non-breeding, they head off to the Humboldt
Humboldt
Current,
Current,
right?
Yeah.
Peru and northern Chile.
Yeah, you
Chile,
see them on your trips sometimes,
Yeah,
right? Mostly
yeah.
youngsters, though. Yeah.
Mostly youngsters, actually.
Yeah.
We get excited when we see an adult.
And we've had photos of banded ones there that we've banded, been taken over there and reported back to us actually, which was pretty epic.
Yeah.
There's not that many of them, and then you don't really see that many
Right.
of them, and then to actually get pictures sent to you of
pretty
some of the
amazing.
banded ones is pretty cool. Yeah.
I do think I mentioned before, I think it's a really, looking at photos of it or paintings of it, I don't think it comes through what a good looking albatross it actually is, like the banana colored bill.
Hands
and
down,
that,
that's a stunning bird.
it is.
Yeah.
The odd thing is, for me, is that years ago, when most of the rest of the world was separating it out as a species, right? The North Americans are always the last, essentially, to do this. I wrote up the proposal to separate it all out, and salvins and white-capped and so forth.
Oh, nice one.
And then you look at the map of where these birds are breeding, and you see that they're separated and so forth, and you read a little bit about the fact that sometimes a few salvins will wind up somewhere else and they don't interbreed and all that. But when you do this cruise, you realize how close, as far as the albatross can fly. A salvins from the colony, their colonies, can go to the Chatham colony within a day or less.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Yeah.
And you think, like, why wasn't this more obvious to people? Like, I mean, it was to you guys that live here, but to the rest of the world, we just didn't know. To see it myself now, it's really amazing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon it's quite cool doing that trip, Antipodes, Bounties, and then Chathams, and I fly to the Chathams all the time and that, but to me the best is what we've just done, arriving here from the south and seeing that shift in birds, and then it was a bit foggy the day we got there, but the view coming up and seeing the pyramid there, and then the other islands at Chatham's behind it, it's just beautiful. Really. Yeah. So
whole trip's spectacular, but the last 3 island groups, I think, are especially so.
Yeah. It's exactly the right order to do it in.
100%, I think. It is. It is. Yeah.
Otherwise, you would be like, oh. Yeah, this is this island's all right, but it's not like the Chatham.
Yeah. Yeah, they've all got something different and add something different, and it just keeps building up, eh? Yeah.
Exactly, and you know the Chathams, you have also, you've got a couple of shags. You have, the warbler, which is the Gerigony,
Not the Jerrygon, as us Americans pretty much across the board initially think it's pronounced.
Right, and then there are populations of things like the tui that may be a separate species. A lot of things people are working on because they've been isolated for, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of years. Yeah. Who knows, right? And I thought it was pretty neat to see all that too, that you're big enough there that you have also a different kind of a varied avifauna versus some islands don't have any, land birds at all, right?
Yeah.
Like the Bounties really don't have,
And I mean, I'm biased but there's no doubt the Chathams is the best out of all of them for sure. Mm-hmm. So yeah. But, you guys have seen it now. You're nodding in agreement.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Practically goes without saying, right?
Yeah. He is holding a knife, though, I must admit.
I learned some tricks in the Chathams.
Well, we were there. We realized, too, that, there's not that many people, and a lot of people involved in doing the work and so forth. Some of them are relatives or friends, family friends that go back, multi-generations. Tell us a little bit about life on the Chathams, too, like how that is, because it seems like a neat place. Yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely awesome place. So, I mean, my connection to the Chatham started from my father. And when Dad used to go away for 2 or 3 months at a time, and he'd go to these exotic places, Chathams, Campbell Islands, things like that. And then we just heard about these places, and then finally, got given the opportunity to go there. I mean, Dad set up the trip, the trip, and after that, it just got, under my skin, really. To be honest, I just fell in love with it. So yeah, it's just a brilliant place to live, brilliant place to have young kids. So until they're teenagers, they just really enjoy it. That kind of small community where when you're at a do, just kid falls over, any person picks them up and pats them off, you're okay, and then sends them on their way, and stuff like that. So, super safe and really awesome. Teenagers get a little bit bored, and stuff like that. So you got to be, unless they're hardcore hunting and fishing, it's a bit. So yeah, I find it really good, but you got to ship in all your food and stuff like that. A lot of people on the Chathams complain about the cost of freight there, but I never do, because on the flip side, I can go eat for free as much crayfish, as much blue cod, as much power, and as much meat as I want. So to be honest, I actually think the cost of living in the Chathams is probably cheaper than New Zealand, but because of their freely available meat and seafood. So yeah, and if you're half quite good at gardening, you can grow anything you like, even tomatoes outside and stuff like that. It's not actually that cold. You just got a protection from the wind, because that's the big one of the Chathams. It's virtually never not windy. The day we had was pretty.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. It's pretty. In this seasonally, there's not a tremendous change, right? It's pretty stable between seasons.
Yeah.
Maritime climate.
Yeah. Maritime climate. Frost is super rare. I've seen snow only 2 times in 30 years and things like that. So yeah, the biggest thing in winter really is you can get quite low sunshine hours. So you do end up missing the sun a bit in winter time, but it's not. If you get out of the wind, it's still quite warm.
I was quite perturbed in a sense. We got to the islands and we were going to go out to this trip. And I saw some of our clients being put into the back of a police car.
I know. I noticed that. I thought, my God, what did they do wrong now?
Then we realized the police were actually helping ferry everybody around. They were, like you said, there's not much crime, so they'd rather go and ferry people back and forth to
take some people birding.
And that's the sort of community there. That something like this, suddenly 140 guests descending on the Chathams. It's
It's massive.
You know, it's massive, and so you've got to get the school bus in to start carting people around, and then where we went to Sweetwater, it has to go 4-wheel drive, so you need 4-wheel drive. So you ring around that, and so the police are like, I can do it, and that. So you know, and conservation stories on the Chathams. You know, the Tycho project has been going on for 40 years. And things like that, so it's ingrained in the history of the Chathams as well.
Right.
Everyone knows about it and stuff like that, and lots of people have been connected about it. There's a feeling in New Zealand, and you may hear it when you talk around that people, that Chatham Islanders don't like conservation, but it's an absolute myth. They just don't really like the government department of conservation. So they're very independent people. They like doing things their way and how they do it. So there's heaps of private conservation going on, you know. Everyone, you know, on this trip you would have heard it a couple of times, and you probably heard me mutter when people say it, you know, well, they've rediscovered black robin. It's like, well, when Western science rediscovered black robin, Chatham Islanders always knew it was on Little Mangere and things like that. They always knew there was a seabird breeding out the back of the tuku and things like that. They just didn't know that that's what was called magenta petrel and things like that. So and when sort of, you know, the first ornithologists and conservationists turned up on the island, they started, the good ones started talking to the locals and getting their traditional local knowledge, combining it with their science and knowledge of seabirds, and that's what led to the things of, you know, rediscovering Tycho and where they breed in the forest and stuff like that. So it's ingrained in people there. You know, you've seen what the Chathams is like. You've kind of got to be part of the environment there. So much of your life is dictated by weather and climate and things like that you really are, you know, you've got your feet on the ground, in the ground there, you know. So it's a myth I really try hard to dispel, that islanders don't like conservation.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, people who live close to the land don't want to destroy the land. I mean, that's typical. It's just often outsiders want to come in to like instill the notion of what they think is right, rather than figuring out how to help the local people make their choices that also would help the birds and the nature. You know, right? It happens all over the place. It's the same kind of thing, and especially islands. Right? Islands are often the most critically endangered. Often the people on islands have a unique culture, right?
Yep.
So you have this kind of thing over and over again. In fact, there almost should be like a group of island folks that talk to each other from different countries to
deal with their respective governments.
Similar things, like people in Easter Island, Rapa Nui, Juan Fernandez Islands. That, you know, there's people living there along with these rare birds. So how to make it all happen? How to make it work? And then tourists want to come there and look. And see things, you know. So that's business opportunities or what have you, to fund conservation. You know? So how the Tycho, the magenta petrel, which isn't purple or magenta because it's named after the ship, right?
The ship, eh?
That the original, was it Murphy or was it?
Nah, it was an Italian guy. I can never pronounce
Was it one of those?
Gilioli or something like this. I don't know how you pronounce it. And he was out on that research vessel. And
I thought didn't Rollo Beck collect the first specimen? I thought he did, but maybe.
Well, but, you know, he was probably rowing, you know, down the middle of the thing.
No, he wasn't the captain, that's for sure.
But so this bird gets described, and then is it not seen for a long time, or did they see it for a while, then it disappeared? Or did they just not know where it was? Or like,
after they collected those two, no one saw it again, and that was it. There was those, I think it was 2 specimens collected way up at Easter Island somewhere there, and they just they reported seeing others, but collected 2, and then just never seen before, and never seen after, and then no one knew where it came from or anything like that. So it kind of just vanished into thin air again.
And then when does it rediscovered, resurface? Is it?
It's a real fascinating story. There's an amateur ornithologist called David Crocker, who was a science teacher, and as a school kid, he got involved in the Canterbury Museum and started sifting through a massive collection of subfossil bird bones that were taken from the Chathams. He started going through them, and then as he was going through them, he kept building up this bigger and bigger pile of bones that he couldn't identify. Some type of pterodroma petrel that just fit no other species, and it started getting built up and built up and built up, and then he started sort of hearing. Then that guy called Charles Fleming went out as a university student to the Chathams, and he met some of the landowners there and heard about this seabird coming in on the main island that used to crash into windows on misty nights and stuff like this. And Fleming thought it was, from the descriptions, thought it was mottled petrel. But then David Crockett was sort of like, hang on, and with these bones, and it didn't make sense. And then sort of this Tycho specimen and things like this, and started thinking that maybe these were all like one and the same. So he started funding his own expeditions to the Chathams that he did, and went down and met the landowners down there, started yakking to them, and started camping in the south of the island. And at that stage, we started to know that seabirds were attracted to light. So the first time he did, he just lit a massive bonfire on the beach down there, and was hoping to see birds flying in around this big massive bonfire. So he didn't see any that first trip, but he searched the cliffs and he found a couple of wings, so predated birds, just the wings left over, and stuff like that. And that's when he really started thinking, hang on, that this wing does fit the magenta petrel description, and where sort of the link between those two came. And then he just continued going down and continued going down. He finally saw some in a spotlight, but didn't catch any. And some of the government scientists at the time, they were like, no, you're just seeing something else. It can't be this. Didn't really believe him. So the Chatham Island Gun Club offered to go down and sit under the lights and shoot one out of the sky for him, which fortunately he didn't take up. And then, it was finally on the 1st of January 1978 that he caught the first two, and was like the photographic proof in the hand that finally convinced everyone that he wasn't chasing a ghost.
And then you could match it to the two specimens that existed, and the measurements, and go, it's the same thing.
The same thing, yeah.
And then boom, then it was like it's here, it exists.
Yeah. So pretty epic. But then another 10 years after that to actually find where they're breeding.
All right.
So sort of once he rediscovered it, he sort of then switched his effort to trying to find the breeding grounds.
And now, I mean, when we visited, there's a whole huge predator-proof fence.
Yeah.
Right, to keep all sorts of things out, right, so that they're not predated. And it's a growing population, and all sorts of stuff about them now, and it seems to be on the all positive so far, right? I mean, or is there are there huge problems up ahead that you can see with the recovery?
So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears have gone in to get us to where we are, and a huge amount of work. But 100%, you're right. We're just on this awesome trajectory of what they are. The birds that breed in the bush still, they're 100% reliant on predator control. The moment we button off that, they're gonna get smoked again. So the predator fence, about half the world's population, about 25 pairs, are nesting inside Sweetwater. And that's really brilliant there. I think I was talking to you about it outside the gate when we were standing there waiting for your turn to go in to have a look. And, in the old days, one single male took 19 years to get to find a mate, single for that long, trying to do it. Now the birds, they just get mates just like this,
Right, so many more birds now.
So many more birds around, and then we're sort of seeing it behaving like a proper seabird colony and things like this, even competing for burrows and things like this, which would be normal in a dense seabird colony. So we're sort of, some things we thought we knew about Tycho was actually their behaviour in an extreme, numbers really down, endangered population that's not quite behaving normally. Now they're sort of a bit more behaving like normal seabirds, and just doing really, it's...
As an example, like the individual, our group got to meet Dave Boyle, who's been, a colleague of yours who's...
Yeah, and I'm flogging what I know about Tycho off him, so I'm just kind of quoting him and stuff like that, So Dave knows Tycho inside and out. He's been working on that project 11 years, and he's the one that's seeing all this change and watching the numbers build up. This is the kind of guy that walks around a 20-kilometre trap line, checks one of the burrows and finds a chick hasn't been fed for a while, comes back, mixes up some food, and then walks 10 kilometres back in the bush to feed that chick to make sure it's fat, So suddenly he's walking a 40-kilometre day or something because he wants to make sure it's looked up. He doesn't wait to go back the next day and think, oh, it'll be all right. He goes and does it then. So super dedicated.
That came through in his talk. Like even a lot of the folks that didn't necessarily know what to expect from our visit to Sweetwater, they were talking. We were talking about it at dinner last night, and they were like, you could just tell how much he cares for these birds, and like you were even saying ahead of time, you're like, watch while he's talking, you might see him sort of patting the individual, and of course he did kind of reflexively does that at times, like he's trying to soothe it and calm it down. He did say, and it was interesting, the one that we did get to see was a bird that was, I think,
male.
It was a male. And it was a widower, right?
Yeah.
It had lost its mate fairly recently. And it was actually causing a little bit of trouble because of that, right? It's kind of crawling around the colony and stirring up a little bit of trouble here and there. But he said, maybe a decade ago, 15 years ago, who knows how long this thing would have
stayed single.
Yeah, would have stayed single for maybe a long time. Whereas he said now, by the end of the year or by the end of the season, even probably be paired up.
Again,
which is amazing.
Which 10 years ago that would have just been like, oh, poor fella, I wonder how long it's going to take him to find another mate. So yeah, and then we're also on the cusp of the last sort of 4 or 5 years. Dave's been getting 30 to 40 chicks being fledged. And now those birds are at the age when they'll start going to go back. So we're going to see that, we're sitting at 52 eggs this season, and I think you're just going to see that just skyrocket up in the next few years as those cohorts of 30 and 40 chicks are due back, the ones that survive. So it's pretty exciting times, and so, Sweetwater can fit, we're about to fit thousands and thousands of birds, but the next big aim after that is actually trying to get rid of pests off the rest of the Chathams. There's things like black robins and snipe and stuff like that are just 100%. They need zero predator to survive. Right. Taiko can survive with low predator densities because of their behaviour and that. But some of these other endemics we have here, like in so many other islands, just can't at all. So that's one of the Trust's aims too, is to try to do that. I often talk about, next time we have to, how I talked about how the Trust replaced the capping last year because of the rust issues and the salty environment. Eventually our aim is we don't even need a fence at all and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And there's real growing support for that on the island. So 100% of landowners an agreement of the concept of a predator-free Chathams, and it's only the methodology. But now we've got these much better traps that reset themselves and that, so you potentially don't have to be so reliant on toxins, because that's usually what people don't like. And so there was the option for that. So it's it's quite an exciting future to me for the next 20 years in the Chathams.
So I was excited to learn that the reserve that is inside the predator-proof fence right now can have massive densities in time. I was wondering if, oh boy, are you going to have to expand this massively to get a larger group of birds? But apparently, no. The densities can be higher because relatives in the Pterodroma group actually can be at real good densities. So I thought that was good.
Yeah.
You have the land already. You have the fence already.
Yeah, so, and we've been surprised how the taika that keep coming in are all nesting quite close to each other. So even within Sweetwater at the moment, they're probably, every burrow is probably in 5 or 10% of it, actually, in quite a small area. They're social creatures, they like each other, so they hear the calling, they hear the mucking around on the surface, and they're coming in and packing. And I was going to say packing, and they're not quite packing in yet, but they're filling in close. So yeah.
Some of the clients, the birders, were surprised to hear about some very basic biology of these petrels and shearwaters and many of these seabirds, that they kind of arrive at the colony. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they arrive and they display and they kind of pair off, then they leave.
Yeah. For
weeks.
Yeah.
Right, to fatten up. I guess and then come back. I mean, is that how it works? Is something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. So the males come back, dig out the burrow first off, and then attract a female in for taiko, a combination of calling from burrow entrance and aerial display, flying around and getting a good looking taiko and bringing her back home and feeding her dinner, and and so
candlelit dinner.
Candlelit dinner. Yeah.
All romance, I'm sure.
Yeah. Chatham Island romance. We don't have candles, so yeah. So yeah, and then mate and then the female. Well, both of them head out to sea. Pre-laying excess, fatten up, build the egg.
Right.
And yeah.
And they can go probably really far off.
They're going real far. So most of these guys from the tracking work that's been done are going down like southeast of the Chathams. A lot of them on the Bolton Seamount.
Okay.
So several 100 to 500 kilometres away, week to 14 days away. Incubation shifts changing over like that. So
yeah, it's pretty neat. I mean, to think that they're so mobile and they choose this one little hilltop on the south end of one island to nest in. And you always wonder, why that specific spot, and then why were they not on the other islands, or were they in the past?
Well, all the evidence suggests that actually taiko were only on main Chatham. They weren't even on the other islands of the Chatham. So no subfossil bones have been found of them on the other islands, which is extraordinary, to be honest. So whether those islands weren't good for subfossil bones being remaining or anything, and as an artifact of that, but it's quite astounding. But yes, the whole picking of the Sweetwater site is a pretty cool story. The dock scientists at the time wanted to put it down the bottom of a steep gully, but Bruce Turno, the landowner there, was just absolutely adamant that was a dumb place, and we should put it up on this hill, because his father had told them that he used to collect taiko from there and knew it was a taiko breeding colony in the ancient past. And it's probably the one time in life where a pig-headed stubborn farmer is right, and for a good reason, because I believe part of the success of Sweetwater is that site. Really easy for the chicks to get to see, but then it's a little hillock there, which pterodromas like, flying around to display and stuff like that. And I reckon that's one of the real successes of it.
And Doc is the Department of Conservation, for those of you who might not.
We got to ride with Bruce in his car on the way up, which was a real treat. And
pretty humble.
Yeah, he is very soft-spoken, but you can tell just obviously knows the place in and out, and had a lot to share. And that was one of the things he was saying. I was looking at the cliffs kind of on the way in there, thinking, gosh, I wonder if any of these cliffs would have taiko burrows, like in the cracks and holes on the cliffs. And he was like, no, they need the peat. They need the peat. They really want to dig their own burrows, and I thought it was interesting on that side of the fence. He said that it started bare dirt, basically, like when and this is only 18 years ago? And now it's really coming into native forest. And you think it's exciting to think what it'll look like in another 5 or 10 or 15 years. And there's quite a bit of it, as we saw last night as we were motoring around the edge of the island. You could see where the fence comes down, and there's a lot that hasn't even filled in yet, and it looks like could be a lot more habitat for them in the years to come.
Yeah, sure, could be. Yeah. Almost, yeah.
There's also another petrel, right? The Chatham Island petrel, which some people confuse, isn't the magenta the taiko at Chatham Islands? Say, well, yes, but there's two. Yeah. There's a smaller one.
And it's funny, that's a harder one to see, actually. Somehow magenta petrel, which is much rarer, I guess maybe because it disperses southeast, maybe, is... Yeah, that's actually the easier one to see.
But it's also a conservation issue, right? I mean, and it's using some of them are using Sweetwater, and others are dispersed.
So there's probably about 1,000 pairs that are living on Southeast Island, Rangatira, the island we zodiac around, to zodiac around. But then there's translocated populations that have been set up on Pitt Island and at Sweetwater as well. So it'd be maybe 8 or 10 pairs in Sweetwater.
And are they growing in population, or are they not stable?
They're more kind of stable, so they're not going back or anything like that, but they're just, And ironically, the main issue for them on Rangatira is competitions with bauble prions. So when the Chatham petrel chicks are sort of a month old or so, the bauble prions are coming back to prospect burrows, and they'll turf out the Chatham petrel chick. Yeah. So it's a pretty cool conservation story there. A lady called Kerry Jane Wilson put artificial burrows in them, and then developed a neoprene flap to go over the entrance of that burrow with a slit in it, and the Chatham Island petrels would push through that to get in and out of their nest because they had such an attachment to it, but the prospecting prions wouldn't push through it, and that way has really improved the breeding success of Chatham petrels. So it's quite a cool story.
You were saying that Chatham petrels often would cover their burrow.
Oh yeah,
when they, which is very different than most other.
So So we've seen it on the trail cameras and that they go out, they wander around the surface and drag a whole bunch of leaves and fronds and put it over their burrow entrance and then head off, because it was really pretty funny. The very first chicks of Chatham petrels we found in a burrow and stuff like that at Sweetwater. I was checking the burrow, but then I had to go off the Chathams for about 3 weeks. So I asked Bruce to go up there and take a look. And when I got back to the island, I said, "Oh, have you checked the burrow?" And he's like, No, there's nothing going on there. It must have failed or something. I was like, oh, that's a bummer. So I didn't rush up there. And about a week later, I went up to have a look. I opened up and, there's a chicken there. I went back to Bruce and said, there's a chicken there. And he says, I only looked at the entrance and it was covered with leaves, so I didn't think the birds were going. I was like, oh, no, Bruce, remember they cover the entrance up. And he was just like, yeah.
That's so interesting.
So it was pretty...
I didn't know that any petrels would do that.
They're like the clean, orderly petrel.
They always close the barn door on the way out.
Yeah. You don't see it on Southeast as much because there's not as much leaf litter and stuff on the ground and things like that. And I think so many other seabirds charging around and kicking it around. But and I'm not just talking a few leaves they chuck on. It's buried. You can hardly see the entrances, kind of thing. That's a real interesting behaviour.
Wow.
So you've been lucky enough to work on all these different species. I think probably it's debatable, but one of the birds that maybe holds the most allure to birders that are visiting New Zealand and have never been to the Chathams or maybe would love to go is this, the story of the black robin is pretty well known. Like they were down to 6 or 7 individuals, 1 female left, and now there's a couple hundred of them, and they seem like they probably numbers are more or less stabilized where they are now. They're probably not going to grow too much more, I guess. But I mean it's an amazing story. It's an amazing bird. It's a worldwide known famous bird and conservation story. Do you think that at any point birders might be allowed to, I guess I'm thinking like I'd really love to see Chatham petrel. I've glimpsed a black robin once, but it would be just an amazing thing to be able to take people to go to
100%.
to Southeast Island and we zodiaced around the side of it, which was fantastic. Also seeing shore plovers all over the place, which is also endangered species. That's got
that was a highlight.
Plover. And it's a great looking bird as well. Landing there and just being able to,
Is there any reason not to, in a sense?
Personally, to me, there's not. And the Chatham Island Landscape Restoration Trust that I'm a part of, and the Chathams, is lobbying quite hard to try to allow visitors there to use the landing fee that you would pay to go and do that to fund our eradication efforts back on main Chatham, so that one day you don't have to visit those islands to see them. That they'll be on main Chatham, because literally those species you want to see there, would be, you could just see them on the 80-metre walk to the hut. You wouldn't actually have to go that far. Wow. The other bush birds there, you could just walk along the shore and get nice and easily. But the robin and the snipe, you have to get into the bush to see.
Right.
Yeah, every now occasionally someone sees a black robin from zodiacking, but it's one, it's not a very good view for a start. It's but so I'm a real but I see the value of ecotourism, and especially ecotourism, that money is then directed back to conservation and to meet sustainable employment in small island communities like this. So obviously if visitors come into that, they're going to stay in the hotel and they've got to buy food locally and things like that, and then that develops a sustainable economy for that island, which is good for the island people, which on some of these islands are just as endangered as the wildlife and the wildlife. I support it.
There's a lot to be gained potentially.
There's a lot to be gained potentially. And like I said before, we've got landowner support for wanting to eradicate pests off the whole of Chatham and off Pitt Island. We now have the technology to do that. The only thing that's holding us back now is the moolah, the money.
Funding.
Is the funding to do it. So having something like that, which there wouldn't have been a birder on this boat that wouldn't have raised their hand to say, "Oh, okay, I can land you for X dollars."
Yeah.
So
people would have loved it.
People
People were talking about it and asking about it.
And in particular, like you say, the black robin is, there's no one in the world who hasn't heard that story. It's an absolute iconic story. It's the best story of hope there ever is. That a species can get that endangered, but you can still bring it back and save it. So it's got that with it too. There's just this whole history and everything, as well as a pretty cool, charismatic bird when you get to see it up close. And it's so.
If folks want to help that are listening, or if there's something that we could communicate to our folks that are on the trip that we still have a couple days left with here, is there any place in particular you would direct them? Obviously, the Tycho Conservation Trust would be a big one.
Yeah. So there's two trusts in the Chathams. So if you want to help the Tycho, look up the Tycho Trust website. tychotrust.org.nz, or just Google it. And
we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And follow that website, and you go things to help donate to that. And they're focused on the Tycho and that area down there. And then there's the Chatham Island Landscape Restoration Trust, which is they're looking at a more island-wide conservation, helping landowners replanting, and then aims for predator-free. So like we were talking about on the ship here, that adopt a trap program where for $500 New Zealand you get to buy a trap that helps smoke all those predators that are doing it. And one day, our aim is to have robin and snipe, back somewhere on the main island. So those would be the two ones to suss out.
I don't think people understand how cool the snipe are on these islands. It's like they're like miniature kiwis in a way.
Earlier on, you said, one of the things I might ask you, was what was be a highlight of the trip. And for me, actually, one of the highlights was we were hearing Chatham Island snipe calling, just drifting offshore. Turned off the Zodiac, and we were just drifting there for a little bit, and we could hear a Chatham Island snipe calling. Never got to see it because they don't break forest cover or anything like that. But it was just like, and to me that was kind of echoing how precious these islands are and stuff like that. So and to me it was kind of like the wave to the future of what main Chatham could be like, that you could be hearing those if we could get rid of the pests off it,
I was contemplating the fact that one of the paddocks, a few of them were full of sheep, as a lot of New Zealand also in the mainland is, but the islands have a lot of sheep and cattle. But the sheep apparently are not as valuable as they used to be, right? Nobody buys wool, and they're really raised for meat. And I just saw the future is that the sheep are not going to be there anymore. And so if you're a farmer and you've got sheep, you want to see some future for your land, and maybe the future is conservation. You know what I mean?
So you talk to the farmers there, and they'll, Bruce in particular, he's the classic example of it. Loves farming. He just, he wouldn't want to do anything else in the world and things like that. And the good farmers on the Chathams. But what they don't tell you is they also own a little bit of fish quota and things like that. So some of that income is subsidising their farm basically. Mm-hmm. And all of that stock, there's no meatworks on the Chatham, so all their stock has to be sent to New Zealand on the ship to be slaughtered there and sold and stuff like that. So huge transportation costs and things like that. So farming's it's I wouldn't want to be a farmer in the Chathams. It's not a rosy future. Meat consumption's going down everywhere and things like that too and stuff. So conservation and ecotourism is a sensible diversification of your land. And there's landowners on the Chathams that are going that way, that have virtually stopped farming, fencing off their land, starting to replant and doing that, and only having a few paddocks where they're running some stuff to fill the freezer for themselves and their family. So that is happening already, and it's just a predator-free Chathams would help that.
Right. And encouraging more visits, right, from people, not only in ships, but you can fly
here.
You can fly there.
And it's really a neat place. Like we sort of made some equivalencies to the Falklands. You know, but it's not quite the same. But it's windswept and birds and nature.
Waitangi kind of recalls Stanley in some ways.
Yeah, okay.
It's much smaller, but Waitangi is.
And there's some of the fishermen now too that on their off season, you know, do little pelagics and go around. And there's one guy who doesn't know his birds super well, but he knows where to find them and that, and so he knows where to put to there, and that you'll be able to see Forbes parakeet, and then go down around the pyramid, and then off southeast to see snipe and stuff like that. So
do a small boat pelagic out for Chatham petrel.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Glenn King owing a charters, he's the guy that, you know, went out with Hadaram and got those videos and photos of Taiko. So they're, you know, it is a place where you can go and visit and
adding a landings, you know, at southeast would be a game changer.
It would be a game changer.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to get through to the powers that be. That actually, it's when you can suddenly go like, you've got a good chance now for all the endemics. You know, is
right.
Yeah.
That's what would flip it over, and I think you'd suddenly actually get a lot more birders coming here. So, you know, you guys have come here because you're also getting all these other islands as well.
Yeah.
You know, so you would get that traveller coming out who's birding in New Zealand and deciding, I'm going to go to the Chathams because I can actually get this and this, and it's worth that extension going out there. You know, so
there's enough seabird people.
Conservation.
Yeah. There's enough seabird people, and there's enough people that would just love to see a black robin. It'd be a big deal.
Beautiful place.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, good people, good beer,
good fish and chips.
Good fish and chips.
The breezy beer. They ran out almost. I got the last breezy beer lager in the pub there.
You guys drink a lot, though, eh?
It's true. We don't mess around.
Pros.
That's right.
Yeah, and this is the one island out of all of the ones that we visited where you can fly to it from New Zealand.
Yeah.
So you don't, you know, and that not everybody's built to be on a boat. Let's face it.
Yeah.
You know, some of us love it.
Yeah.
Others don't. So
you
know, consider that if you come birding in New Zealand, fly out to the Chathams and go. You know, organize it. You know, with folks.
Yep.
And go and see some of these things. You can actually go and see a magenta petrel.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And the parakeets are awesome. The whole thing.
Yeah, the parakeets are fantastic. The huge pigeon. One other question, Mike, is you've done all this work, all these different projects, all these super endangered rare birds. How did you get started in bird conservation?
So I got started from my father. So my dad, Brian Bell, was Don Burden's boss, and he was before the government change, it used to be called the Wildlife Service, and he was head of protected fauna.
Because Don Mertens was like a legend within New Zealand and beyond, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, so how I ended up getting involved is I was 15 and starting to get useful knowing my birds and stuff like that. And Dad jacked me up a truck down to Rangatira, South East Island, the tail end of the Black Robin project to help Don, monitoring black robin nests and banding black robin chicks and things like that. So pretty jammy. I spent my 16th birthday on that island doing black robin work. You know, so pretty special, to be honest, and that's kind of when I fell in love with the Chathams, and it just got under my skin, and really started enjoying it there. And then, you know, like most people, as you get older and wiser and stuff, I just wanted to start giving back to the island. So now I really try and work hard with landowners to do stuff and do a lot of work for free out here and things like that. I tell my kids they're going to get no inheritance because I've spent it all on the Chathams for the Chathams. So. But So I've been pretty fortunate, and then
And you got two daughters that are starting to get involved in some of the conservation work as well.
Yeah, they surprisingly really love pest control. So they're not birders or anything like that. But they actually came on this trip last year, and they ended up having a bit of a laugh because they started learning people really wanted to see magenta petrel, and then when they worked out that was actually Taiko, they started like going, "Oh man, I've held those. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no big deal." Yeah.
Dad's got a photo of me having my diapers changed by a Taiko burrow and stuff like this, you know, and things like that. So Jess in particular has got a good sense of humour, so she was, making a meal of it actually, and just watching these birders, I was like, oh my God, and stuff like that. So yeah.
I like the fact that we went by this big ship right by your house, and then blew the big ship's horn while everybody was
sitting there
waving.
with my bro waving, my nephew
had the flashlight
nephew
going.
waving, flashlight going. Yeah.
That's pretty special stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, so yes, my dad worked down in the Chathams here, and there's actually been one family of fishermen, the Lenores, so Ken and Eva Lenores used to cart my father around, and then Rooker and Bubbles have carted me around on boats, and then Rooker's carted my daughters, landed my daughters on the pyramid. Jess has a wonderful story. She's like, I'm the youngest person to land on the pyramid for 5 minutes until my sister Tui landed, and she's the youngest. And then his son Levi has been working with me on the Albatross on the 44. So it's 3 generations of one family helping 3 generations of another family do conservation work on the Chatham. Cool. So it is pretty cool. It's and it's the kind of people that are in the Chathams. They're just into it.
Yeah. And Dave Boyle, yesterday when I introduced myself, said, I know who you are. I listened to the podcast.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
I know. We got a listener on the Chathams, and it's like an incredible.
And I think you might even like it. I don't know. I mean, but
oh, that's a bit generous. I'm not sure I heard that.
Maybe not.
So Dave, like I say, he does these big walks around the forest, doing trap lines, a 25 kilometre trap line that needs checking every day, and he listens to the podcast, walking around, downloads these podcasts, and wanders around.
He's got some time to kill, huh?
He's got some time to kill on some of those.
Glad we're not wasting his time there.
So make sure you keep them entertaining, guys.
Yeah,
there's important people listening. That's helping them with their work. So
it was so awesome to learn that he listened. That was really cool. Yeah.
He's a real cool dude.
Well, we're coming up on the hour here, Mike.
Flies, doesn't it?
It really does. It goes quickly. Yeah.
And he's got to give a talk.
I know. Yeah, you got a half hour before your talk here.
We got to let him go here. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for doing this, and folks, if you're listening, definitely check the show notes. Check out the two trusts that Mike mentioned,
and not only check it out, just give some money.
Yeah,
just go ahead. If you enjoyed listening to all these stories about a conservationist, issue where it's going the right way, you can be part of it right now. Just go ahead.
Throw a chunk of change at.
It doesn't have to be a lot. It could be a lot too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we'll take as much as you want. we're a bit shameless, but and it goes to on the ground stuff. This is not paying for administrators and office staff and stuff like that. Every cent ggets spent on the ground, and you guys have seen it. You've touched that fence.
Yeah.
So the difficulty of building a fence.
I was going to say,
you saw it, how we got there, and stuff like that. So
it's intense,
and a bunch of it's underground that you can't even see.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it really is. It's not funding back office stuff. It's frontline stuff for there's more endangered bird species, in the Chathams than probably anywhere apart from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's pretty grim.
Yeah.
There's a lot that needs to be done. But, like I said, it's also really, really positive. It's actually, we're down to the stage now where it's easy fixes, getting rid of predators. We've got people protecting habitat, improving that now, and understanding that that's what they want to do, and they just want to do it. And it's just that the tricky one is getting the predators out. So if we can get those out, it's going to be insane there.
Yeah.
Some good can be done.
Yeah. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Yeah.
Seriously, you and all the gang over there, and your daughters now, and it's amazing,
Yeah, and Dave Boyle as well. Thanks, Dave.
We met Bubbles as well. It's great that it's a whole community that's doing it, and it really is touching to sort of say the least for us who like these birds, that enough people care to devote lives to doing it. So thanks a lot.
It's good fun. We love it. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thanks again, and thanks to Mike Bell, and thanks everybody for listening. And we'll be back again soon with another episode of Life List. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.